Hello, everybody. David here. And tonight, here, I'm just going to post in, bear with me 2 seconds here while I post in the link to come on live. Very interesting. All right. Okay, I am posting the link below in the comments. So if anybody wants to come on and discuss this, let me give a brief overview of what I'm doing here. Well, I was talking to my friend Brian, who lives in Florida, and he's run for political office. And I've never really had that desire. But what I thought is a real problem in our country is the two-party system, because they control everything. And there's a lot of people now who are on social media who are quite famous, who are now calling for the people of the United States to rise up and demand change. And change can come one of two ways. It can come through violence or nonviolence. And obviously, a nonviolent method is always preferred. But it's going to have to be done. And I think that if we go back to what our country was founded on, it was founded basically on the Constitution of the United States. And I don't know how many people have actually read the Constitution, but it's not a huge, complicated document. Some of the wording is, old English, archaic, and that's what leads to some of the disagreements in what certain words meant. But basically, the Constitution was written to ensure that we have certain rights, certain liberties that cannot be taken away. Because as George Carlin says, if the government can take away a right, then it's not a right. It's a privilege. Privileges can be taken away, rights can't. And I think it's something that we're going to have to start talking about, because it's very clear that our government is not going to do what it takes to make sure that the United States is a good country to live in for your children and your grandchildren. Some people probably don't care. But today's Memorial Day. Today is the day that we remember those people who have sacrificed their lives for this country. They died for this country. And all of those people who died for this country in the military, they took an oath to the Constitution. And you're not taking an oath to the president. You're not taking directly he is the commander in chief, but you are taking an oath to what the Constitution stands for. And you're also taking an oath that you will not follow the legal orders or legal laws. And that's something that the people in the police force and in the military, or whoever is going to be charged with putting down the citizenry, those people are going to have a come to Jesus moment and say no. That's what happened when the Soviet Union fell. The oligarch that ran the Soviet Union, they ordered the military to open fire on their citizens who were basically out demanding change, freedom, after Gorbachev was arrested. And they refused to do it. And that was the end of the Soviet Union. And now we're going to be faced with those same challenges. It may not be a pleasant time. So if we go through the Constitution, let me share the screen here. Okay, the Constitution of the United States. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Now, I'm not going to go through and read every article, every amendment. Now, the Constitution does allow, it's a living document from the standpoint that it does allow us to modify the Constitution. It's not an easy task. I believe it requires 3/4 of all states to approve any changes, and I think 2/3 of Congress. It's spelled out in this document. And I may or may not be correct on that. But I want to go to Amendment number 10. Because really that really is the heart of this is going to be the heart of the Constitutional Party. This is the party that I propose, not Republican, not Democrat, a Constitutional Party that stands for the law of the land, the Constitution. Amendment 10, look at how short that is. The power is not delegated to the United States, which means the federal government, by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. That basically means if the Constitution does not clearly say, it has to say this, that's what this is saying. If the Constitution does not say the federal power, the federal government, the United States government, has the right or the responsibility to do A, B, C, X, Y, Z. If it does not say that, the federal power has no right to impose its will on that topic. It is thereby relegated to the states or to the individual, to the people. And it's much better for you and for me to have that power, because a centralized government leads to corruption. Everybody knows the term. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it's true. And it's been in our country for longer than all of us have been alive. Our country has been rogue, and it's been taken over, hijacked by the banks. If you read history, the banks have been trying to take over the United States, first from England, and then from inside our own country. And in essence, the Federal Reserve, it's not a government agency. Federal Reserve is a conglomeration of foreign banks and some US banks who created the Federal Reserve. And that is what controls our money supply. And the Constitution clearly states, and we can go in and find that, Constitution clearly states that only Congress is responsible for coinage, for creating the coin used in trade and the settlement of taxes, basically our currency. And Congress back in 1913, I believe on Christmas Day, Christmas or New Year's, when nobody's paying attention, passed the Federal Reserve Act. And they also passed the income tax laws as well. And so what these criminals did was they created a foreign institution that was now in charge of one of the most important aspects of what the government is supposed to be doing. So the Constitution Party, and I was hoping Dan would be on here because he's a much better note taker than I am. But the first step that's going to happen is a platform's got to be created. And everything is going to be tied to the Constitution because it's the constitutional party. And every major party and every candidate who runs, depending on what office they're running for, typically creates a platform, what they stand for, what they're going to basically promote or not promote if they get into office. And that allows you to determine whether you're going to vote for somebody. And I think that the Constitutional Party's platform is pretty clear. It's the Constitution. But I would probably venture to guess, I don't think they have civics classes anymore. I don't think they've had those for quite a long time. So I don't think the average person in the United States has read the Constitution or is even familiar enough with it to even talk intelligently about it. And I think that is also another benefit of setting up a constitutional party, is that now it puts the focus on, hey, if you want to know what the party stands for, if you want to know what the country should stand for, open up this PDF of the Constitution. It's really this simple. So you don't need to listen to the politicians saying, well, that's not what the Second Amendment meant, or no, that's not what the First Amendment meant, when it clearly states on here, yay or nay. So. Okay. Well, I will do this another time. I'm not going to get into the platform tonight. I'm going to delete these pages here. Okay. Well, if anybody doesn't have any questions, or if anybody has any comments, anybody wants to come on and put their 2 cents into what this should or shouldn't mean. I'll give it a minute. If nobody wants to come in. Now, for those who get confused by, I'm going to go back to the amendments. Come on, computer. Okay. Obviously, the Bill of Rights is a huge part of the Constitution. And it's important to remember that the states that there were a couple states that took quite a while to ratify the Constitution, and they had concerns that it took several years for this document to get created and then approved. Let's see, I believe it was 1789 or 83. Yeah, dates are. Anyways, I'm getting off the topic here. I want to go back to the amendments. And so for those who get confused by the amendments, okay, the Bill of Rights. This is the preamble of the Bill of Rights. The conventions of a number of the states haven't at the time of their adopting the Constitution expressed a desire in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added, and is extending the ground of public confidence in the government, will best ensure the beneficent ends of its institution. I gotta blow this up so I can read it. Resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America, in Congress assembled, 2/3 of both houses concurring, that the following articles be proposed to the legislatures of the several states as amendments to the Constitution of the United States, all or any of which articles, when ratified by 3/4 of the said legislatures, to be valid to all intents and purposes as part of said Constitution. First 10 amendments to the Constitution were ratified December 15th, 1791, and form what is known as the Bill of Rights. So they went back and forth, and these are the changes that they made. Okay. These are our supreme, most important parts of the Constitution that protect ourselves from government and from the agencies of government. Amendment number 1, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And how often do they actually violate that? Very often, because some judge says, well, under the circumstance, we have the right to take away your freedom. No. Where does it say that in this amendment? It doesn't say if we're attacked by another country or by a terrorist, or the government makes up some excuse, probably fictitiously, that they can suspend our freedoms. Doesn't say that. Number 2, amendment number 2, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay? Very, very clear. It doesn't say muskets, doesn't say pistols, doesn't say swords. It says to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Pretty clear. And if the majority of the country wants to change that, there's a process to change it. Good luck. Won't be changed. But what the government does in these agencies and these groups run by the powers that be, like George Soros and others, who have these, they create these false flags. False flags do exist, folks. Absolutely, they exist. And it's the Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. They know that if they get you scared enough, they'll get you to agree to anything they want. And sometimes that's where you're going to have to just say no. Okay, amendment number 3, no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a matter to be prescribed by law. Okay. Amendment number 4. This is a big one. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. No warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. This is a constant battle. And you can see the first 10, as they said, were included in the Constitution. And they even have when the dates were ratified for this. We've actually had some amendments that were added and then retracted as well. So again, very simple. Is we've allowed the federal government to create a book of laws that's probably, who knows how thick it is. The Constitution, if you get a printed copy of the Constitution, it's like this thick. It's very simple, very straightforward. Whereas we've allowed government to tell us everything we can and can't do. Government says you need a license for this, you got to do this, you'll go to jail for this, and it's always under threat of going to jail or paying a fine. That's how they basically try to throw their weight around. Now, RFK Jr., he's just entered the race. It'll be interesting to see what his platform consists of. And let's see who else is in the race. Donald Trump, as a Republican. RFK, I think, is probably going to end up being an independent, my guess. And then DeSantis is in, and we've got a few other people who are running as well. But if you look into how the Democrat and the Republican parties are structured, they are huge. They're huge organizations that basically have taken over control of government. We've allowed these, and if you read the rules of the DNC, I believe that the committee for the Democrats can appoint whoever they want to run for their party, regardless of how the delegates vote and how the people vote. And that's how somebody like Kamala Harris became vice president. When she was running for president, I think she got less than 1% of the Democratic vote. So she had to drop out. So the powers that be who run the Democrats decided, hey, let's make her VP and she'll probably become president because, you know, Joe probably is not going to make full term. It's amazing. He's been in office just over 2 years, and it feels like he's been in office for 10 years with all of the mistakes and trouble that he has created for this country. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And how do I put this? If we do not stand up If all we're going to do is expect a candidate, because if you read the Constitution, the president is not a very, it's an executive position, but it's not meant to run the entire country, to make every decision for the country. And that's what we've allowed. We've allowed the president to become like a king, where we give them these unilateral powers that were never granted in the Constitution. And we are at the point now where if we do not stand up and start taking back control of our country, then take what you're given. Take what you're given. You probably won't like it. Be like grab bag. So, okay, well, that's it. So, again, it's Memorial Day, and I find it hard to believe that any of the people who sacrificed their lives over the history of this country would be happy with how we have allowed this country to be transformed into the evil empire. Truly, truly, if we're just being objective about these things, we've allowed everything that this country that used to stand for, as far as family, as far as standing for God, being a shining light on the hill for the rest of the world. Not that we should care about the rest of the world because we can't control it, but we need to start focusing on ourselves, on our own country, and instead of trying to control it. Okay, my voice is going. Have a great night, and leave your comments. And again, I'm proposing that we create a constitutional party. And it's pretty simple. If you want to know what that means, you just have to open up the Constitution. I'll leave a link to this Constitution in the video and the comment section, and people can open it up directly and read it. And as Dan likes to say, there's a couple books, the Bible and the Constitution. Those are two very important books that really founded this country. They really did. And it doesn't mean that we as people are perfect. That's an impossible task. We will never be perfect. And that's why the amendment can be added to the Constitution when it becomes clear that a majority of the country believes that it needs to be changed, then it can be changed. Peace. Have a great night.